What is up, everybody? Next episode of CRE and Cigars. I'm with my boy Sterling. Thanks for coming out, bro.
Absolutely.
He's the best chiropractor in Miami, hands down. And we're going to be talking about starting a business in 2026. You know, it's an interesting year. Economy is, I think that, in my opinion, I think we're ripe to have one of the best years ever in the economy. I feel like a lot of people who are interested in getting into, whether it's the real estate business, you can rep yourself here, whether it's the real estate business, whether it's any business, I feel like there's a lot of entrepreneurial mindset people out there, and I want to just talk about my first few years in the real estate business. I want to talk about my first few years in business in general, and the mistakes I made, the good, the bad, the ugly. Talk about maybe first year for you, what worked, what didn't work.
Yeah.
And obviously you guys know the rules. Ask any questions you guys want. We'll dive into it while I light up the cigar. Real fast, actually, we talk about cigars a little bit. I still got my Opus X. I got a bunch of these left, so I got to rip through this box. What do you have today?
Padron.
He's got a Padron.
Classic. I love Padron.
Okay, let us know. What do you guys like? I got an Opus X, Fuente X, and he's got a Padron. What do you guys like? Drop it in the chat. There we go. All right, so let's talk about business. Let's talk about our first year in business. Actually, let's even start it off with this. In 2026, if you're going to start from absolute scratch and someone's saying like, "Oh, I want to start a business," what business would you recommend?
Me?
Yeah.
Just in general?
Just in general.
I'm in healthcare, so for me, I know a whole bunch of people in all different aspects of healthcare. A huge one right now is peptides. I don't know how long that will continue to be like super profitable, but that is an amazing business. I think depends on your skill set, but I know a ton of people who can do a lot with all different aspects of marketing, affiliate marketing. There's a lot of power in social media, but I think if you have a degree, let's say you are a chiropractor, a physical therapist, or you're like a real estate agent, or a degree that requires you stay in that profession, I think there's a ton of opportunity for kind of putting a twist on it and kind of putting your own little niche on it. So as an example, myself, I'm a concierge chiropractor. So I don't actually have an office. I only do concierge, which means I travel to all my clients. So that in Miami is perfect, and it's a great opportunity for it. It's a great city. Although before I started 2.5 years ago, no one was doing it. So there is an opportunity within your niche to kind of be
different.
Yeah, and I think there's a ton of opportunity now with social media and all different aspects.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think if I was going to start a business, I think I like healthcare a lot. I think healthcare is one of those businesses that isn't like
it's an evergreen space.
It's an evergreen space. AI is not really going to take over too much. But I was going to say that I think doing some type of consulting for AI for businesses, systemizing businesses. I'm not a huge fan of I think the marketing world is just super freaking saturated.
Yeah.
I think that the one thing though, I'll say this, I think that because there's just so many different ways to make money right now. The big thing though is that I would just make sure you realize that you're going to do it for a long time. Like whatever business it is, you're like, I'm just going to be the freaking best ever in this industry and do it for a decade minimum. Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to just see how it goes. I'm going to be like, no. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to figure out the business, and I'm going to freaking be like, this is the next 10 years. I'm just going to be this guy because it's going to take a couple years for it to blow up.
100%. And
right?
Every time that you start over, you don't understand everything that it taught you from year 1 to 2. You go to a new industry or let's say you go into marketing or you go into something else,
So
you start a different career. You then have to learn all of those newbie lessons all over again compared to somebody who's been doing it for 4 years. Even if you don't have instant success.
It's paying down the ignorance debt.
Ignorance debt, exactly right.
Yeah.
So, and the thing with consulting is you have to be good at something before you consult. So you can't just be fresh out of college and be like, I'm going to be a consultant. Unless you're like really good at, let's say, TikTok, or you have a niche, then consulting I think is
and you've
fantastic.
Proven yourself a little bit.
Right. You have to have the receipts for sure.
Yeah, I think that if you could figure out something that you've got some decent talent at, I think that you can really step up and take advantage of things like that. Where as an example, if you're really good in sales, I'm not even saying sell real estate, but I think that you should highly recommend that you sell. I would say go sell the most expensive thing you can, right? Obviously, I chose commercial real estate, pretty damn expensive stuff. but I don't care like if you're in sales, I would just go sell the most expensive stuff possible and sell to wealthy people. I think that's probably the best way to go if you're just going to get into straight sales. If you because a lot of people, what they do is they get into like really small tech sales, right? Or they get into like solar sales.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're gonna rip door to door and you run a work every single second of every single day and rip and make small commissions on deals, go do solar, go do tech sales. All right, tech sales is like, if you want a base plus some compensation, but like if you really want to make like big money, if you're like, I want to make $1 million a year, I recommend going selling the most expensive stuff you can. Go be a commercial real estate broker, a yacht broker, a jet broker. Go sell some really expensive stuff, right? Because it's much harder, or a business broker. Go sell some expensive stuff because it's easier to make a lot of money when you're selling a ticket. When you sell it, you make $100,000, right? It's much easier to get ahead.
And I have a crazy take.
Yeah.
When you sell things that are more expensive, after you understand it, I actually think it's easier to sell. And I don't know about how it is in the real estate space.
I agree.
But as an example, I have clients that are trying to sell something for super cheap, or they're hassling on price. They always want a discount. It's a lot tougher versus I have clients where I'm like, hey, this is my price. I know it's expensive. I also have a package. They're like, great, let me buy 10 right now. Here's the card, swipe a few $1,000s and boom.
That's right.
And it's way easier than having to convince a person to get a cheap, like a discount price. So
when you sell to poor people, it is hard.
it's way harder.
It's way harder.
Way harder.
And you think that it's easier because it's only $20, it's only $50. The problem is when you work on this much margin, it's very hard to get ahead. You have to sell so many people. Let's see. It says, I agree. It takes just as much energy for small deals as it does for big deals. Yeah, 100%.
This is like the mascot too, by the
Oh,
way.
that's right. My little girl Zoe. We had a shaver. This is the funniest thing ever. She looks so freaking weird, and I almost feel embarrassed to put her on TV right now. But
I'm sorry, Zoe, this is your big break.
This is her big break. But we had a shaver because she had some crazy dreadlocks, so they couldn't save her. They couldn't save the fur.
Her hair's normally like this.
Yeah, she's got a really big head and really tiny body right now. So, but for those of you who are interested in starting a business, I would just recommend the following, right? Like, it's realize that it's going to take a while. It's like, and by the way, there's a lot of you out there that should not start a business. There's a lot of you right now who should definitely realize that like you are a great number 2 or number 5 and number 30, right? And go work for somebody who's an animal and who's going to change the world and who's got a huge vision. Because it's okay for you to not be an entrepreneur, but if you believe that you're going to be an entrepreneur, it's like, dude, you're going to work. What's the saying? You're going to work 5 to 9, so you never work a 9 to 5 in your life.
Yeah.
So you're going to work 12 to 15 hours a day every day, right? Like it's an all-day thing every day.
Yeah.
Right? Because like
it never turns off.
It never turns off. Exactly. So it's like I feel like let's talk about some mistakes. What are some mistakes you made in business?
Early on, let's see. Early on, starting in concierge, I would say, it's a good question. I didn't really have everything down in regards into like pricing, understanding, how much my time was worth. So I didn't calculate, I'm driving to people's homes and I'm doing this service, and I was like, wow, okay, this is an hour service, but in reality, it was like two hours of my day or more sometimes.
Got it.
So I think, and I think after you start to do it, I think you kind of start to figure it out. And then I would also say just having all of the basics in place, like it sounds stupid, but like your LLC and your business bank account and all of these things that protect you too, because when you put all this effort into starting a new business and a person is like, they have a problem, because there's always problems out there. But a person has an issue and like you're just not protected and you don't know everything that you're doing, it puts you in a vulnerable place.
Have you ever been in a place like that?
No. Thank
Is
God.
that not yet? Because I've been sued a few times. I've been sued a few times.
No, as a chiropractor, thank God. But also the fact that you have something in place to protect you, having the right insurance and having the right everything, you just know that. I would just say to do it right and don't skip steps or scam your way or try to take shortcuts, because in the end it's going to come back and bite you.
Yeah.
There's more off the top of my head. That's a couple I can think of right now.
Yeah. So well, let's break down a few of them, right? So like number one, it's like I felt like it was interesting that you mentioned that like you didn't think that like, oh, it's gonna be an hour appointment. So like, but you didn't care also add in the idea of like driving there and then like the drive back, and you're like, okay, well now it's like 2 hours of my time. and you might have to charge appropriately for that, right? So they're trying to figure out the lighting inside, which I feel like is interesting because like when you're starting a business, you're like, yeah, like, oh, like I want to do a chiropractic session as an example. And then you're like, yeah, sure, no problem, we'll do it. And then like you try to say a price, and they're like, okay, cool, let's do it. And then you're like, you don't calculate the dollar per hour part.
Yeah, and then you're like, shit, I just shot myself in the foot.
Exactly, but then what happens is like the busier you get, you start paying attention to the dollars, right, and the dollar per hour type of aspect. So I think that's very interesting.
I think if you undersell yourself early, it's really hard to raise the prices. Another thing I found, compared to early on, I did this start and then I did something else where I have the same prices I have now, but for people, when I first started, I didn't have anybody. I'm like, these are my first handful of OG clients. I would say, look, I'm gonna give you like a founder's price or a discount. So I'd be like, I'm gonna give you $50 off or $100 off, but just know that the main price is still up here. Compared to saying, oh, I'm charging you 100 now, but in a month it's gonna be 200. It feels wrong compared to like, I'm giving you a discount now, but just know that once I get a little busier, it's going back to my normal prices. It's
so I guess it's also different though with your business because like in my consulting business, we started almost 4 years ago at $3,000 for the year.
Yeah.
Okay, we now charge $12,000 for our core product, $3,000 for the lowest tier now, and we do a like a 40, and we have a $40,000 upper, like a $42,000 highest tier, right? But when we started, it was only $3,000, right? So I think that like if you're going to do reoccurring, like you, where like you're working with someone like myself as an example, and then you keep raising the price. It's actually like a haircut though. Like inflation goes up and things go up. So I actually, as someone who can clearly afford it with your type of thing, I think that it's fine if you go up in price. Actually, I don't think it's a problem.
Well, I think so. I just increased my prices like maybe 5% at the start of the year. And so I kind of like to do that at like. At a.
Do I get grandfathered in?
You do.
Okay, I get grandfathered in. Okay, good.
He's an OG, so he gets the OG prices. But for anybody new, there's a new price, which I think makes sense.
Because what Alex Hormozi talks about, which I like his concept, which is you start at any like as long as you want to be in a profitable position, right? You don't want to lose money when you do it. But what you do is you start at a certain price, and then after you sell 5 or 10 or 20 people, you up the price by 20%. Actually, is what he mentioned. You up it by 20%. Yeah. And then you try to keep going until you find a place where like actually it's really difficult to make sales. Yeah. Right? Because what'll happen is like, Alex was actually in a most recent video, he talked about how if you have a conversion rate that's, I think he mentioned like above 50%, okay? He was saying that actually you were probably charging too little. And if you have a conversion rate that's somewhere between 30 and 40%, that's pretty healthy. Right? So it's just like if you're closing 80% of the people you're trying to sell, you're probably charging too little. Yeah. Right? Actually hearing no is okay. Yeah. Because I would rather be able to charge double the price and sell 20% less people. Yeah. Right? Because the profit margin is substantially larger. Yeah. But
I think
let's right here. Folks don't know how valuable their mental bandwidth is, and they'll have a better returns working larger deals. I agree. Henry, do you think offering property management services for investors nationwide could work as a business? Many property manager tasks can be done virtually. Yeah, I think that similar to what we're talking about, though, the one thing with property management is that it's very time intensive. It's very hands-on intensive. And I agree that you can definitely delegate to some extent, but it's also you have to have somebody locally there and have a lot of good connections to handymen and a lot of the local professionals. So I actually think that it can be really good if you do the following. If you're going to do it, I would recommend doing it for really large properties. So like when you're going to take and keep in mind, like when you do really large properties, your fee is going to be percentage wise less. But there's probably a nice middle ground between like the gigantic properties and the tiny little properties where you can still charge 5-6% and get a good chunk of money. Because think about it, if you're going to make 5% on $1 million, it's $50,000 a year. If you're going to make 5% on $80,000 a year, it's like $4,000, right? Like how are you making any money on that, right? So I just I think that a lot of people also think that like property management is going to be an easy way to make some steady money, and it's not easy. It's like everything's hard. Choose your hard. And I would say like, hey, if you're gonna be a broker, just be a broker and then refer out stuff to property managers and try to make a percentage of a referral fee, because it's easier to make money that way without being super freaking distracted, right? Like you have other stuff you refer out, but you don't have to do it yourself. Yeah. And
then
so
you
take a piece. Right? That's the best way to do that.
Until you have a team. It's also like I think the biggest issue with Airbnbs is having good cleaners. It's the same thing where like if you don't pay them enough, you gotta follow up with people, and it's hard.
A mess of a business.
It's tough. So that in-person stuff, if you can nail it, is good. But I agree, if it's not your specialty, it's probably just a little bit more.
Yeah, like, and also just like property management, which like I've technically been in property management for almost 15 years with my family's properties and now my own properties. And I can tell you that it's a bitch. It is not fun. There's always things that need to be done. And they're honestly like lots of little $200, $500, $2,000 things. And so many of them all the time, because there's always stuff that's breaking and always things that need to be fixed. So just keep in mind that like one thing that I thought was interesting, like one of my properties that I owned with a partner, he hired a property manager because I lived locally and I was managing it. And then when I moved to Florida, he wanted to hire, he was like, why don't I just hire my friend? He's a property manager. He'll take care of it. This guy, this guy actually charged, I think he charged 5%, okay? If I remember correctly, but he charged a percentage of every repair that needed to be done. And he kept upcharging on all these little things. And he ended up making a lot of fucking money to the point where I was actually pissed about how much fucking money this guy made on our property. So just know that like, but like you like his margin, he doesn't profit a lot of money. Like one of my friends who makes a lot of money in property management, the way he did it was that he was also a part owner in all of these properties. So he owns 3,000 or 4,000 apartments right now, and he's the property management company. So he basically double dips in it. He's got his own equity in the deal. He's a GP, and he also manages the property. So he ends up making, he triple dips in these properties, and it allows him to be way more profitable on his deals, buy better quality deals, make sure that the deals are being operated appropriately. So if you're going to buy deals, it actually can be kind of strong to have your own management team. But he didn't make a lot of money until like the last 2 years, but he's running it for 7 years. The first 5 years, he wasn't making a lot. Now he makes like $1 million a month. And top line, it probably nets about $2 million a year. But it takes a long time to build up to that. Good point. As somebody that did property management for 10 years, I'm telling you, it is thankless. Yeah, I agree. It is a bitch of a freaking industry. So let's continue with some mistakes. I think some of the other mistakes I made was I jumped around from business idea to business idea very quickly. Like I was just like rushing to try to make something work. And like after 2 months when something wasn't immediately starting to make good money, I immediately was like, okay, this isn't it, let's do the next thing. And then after a couple of months, I was like, that wasn't making money. And then I was like, okay, maybe this new thing will do it. And I jumped from business to business to business. I think I started like a half a dozen to a dozen businesses within a period of like 8 months. And kept opening up new LCs and kept, new bank accounts and all that kind of stuff. And it was like a really stupid thing where like all the businesses that now make over $1 million a year that I own, I've had for years. Yeah. Like we just ran with one business for a long period of time and it just continued to grow over time. So that's why I'm like a very long-term mindset type of person whenever I start something. But I'd also say this, I think one of the other mistakes was that I got into a lot of businesses that all required a lot of upfront capital, and that kind of screwed me. Like I got into e-commerce, and a lot of people think that doesn't require a lot of money, but like paid ads, building websites, all these things like storefront, all that kind of stuff that you like, even like again digital storefront, but like it cost me $10,000 or $15,000, which I did not have at the time, to start up. Between the paid ad cost, the building of the software, and all these different things that like I had to do, and I just lost everything. Like I never made any money. I don't even think we made one sale in that e-commerce business, to be honest with you, which was really pathetic to think about.
Another thing is, if you think about maybe like a person who you admire in your industry or even a similar industry, and you see, wow, they're crushing it, they have success, I like their model. Almost every time I'm always surprised how many years they've been in either the space or the business, or they started at a different tier and then they became an owner, or they were an assistant to the person that owned it and then they started their own thing. So to your point, I think everybody who's had that success, it takes a lot more time than you think, and also to your point, you always kind of preach about the point of staying with an industry, an idea, or a business for a long time, because every business has its ups and downs. But the more that you're paying that, as you said, the ignorance tax, so that when the time comes, you're like, oh, I've already seen this mistake before, I know how to overcome it, and I know how to make some ground up in a down year compared to a person who's new. So there's always that.
Like, and also like you were mentioning with other people, I think it's interesting where like, if I was going to start a business from scratch, like let's just say that I wanted to start a concierge chiropractic business from scratch.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you not just hire somebody who's like the best in the industry in your market, hire them to do work on you in this case, see how they operate, see what they charge, see how their process is, and then just go do it yourself. Or for commercial real estate, why would you not just call up one, hear how they talk and hear how they sound, and go work for one of them as an example, go learn the process, right? If you want like whatever business I wanted to start, I would just go find like the top 3, 5, 10 people in the market that I want to blow up in, or, you know, outside of those markets even. Maybe even the next state over, it doesn't really matter, but like call them up, learn their pricing, learn their process, learn all their what's working, what's not working, and just copy. You know, like some of the craziest businesses, I don't know if you've ever heard these, but like there was a group of, I think it was brothers, and what they did was that they lived in Europe or in Asia, and all they did was they took the greatest ideas in America that worked, and they just duplicated and they built it overseas. That's all they did, and they made tens of billions of dollars doing it. So it doesn't have to be brand new ideas. I think that's actually a really important thing to talk about, which is some of the most successful businesses. Let me take that back. Not like I'm not talking like $1 trillion valuations. I'm saying like people who make like a couple $1 million a year. A lot of them, a very large percentage of them, they didn't start something brand new. They're in an industry that there's so much competition, right? Like, and they get in, like, you don't have to go into an industry with zero competition or like invent something to make a lot of money. Like, I'm in commercial real estate and he's a chiropractor, but we both make lots of money. And it's like, there's plenty of people who do what we do, right? And it's just like, that's actually kind of the point. It's just like when you can do it better than other people and, become the 1% in that industry, you can make a good amount of money. The problem is that the most challenging piece is becoming that 1% and learning staying in the game long enough, building the processes, charging the right amount of money, like, and going through a lot of the things that cause most people to fail, but overcoming that, you know? I'm curious, like, what do you feel like right now is your biggest challenge in your business?
That is turning it from like a smaller business. So like I started off as a solopreneur where it was just me. And that was good because I had very low overhead. So to turn that into like a solopreneur business into a CEO business where I'm actually the CEO and the owner of a larger business. So now I've got another chiropractor under me, a massage team. I've got an IV person, and I've started to put together all of these things. But the tough thing when you do that, as everybody who has encountered this will say, is you can always rely on yourself 100%. You know how much effort you're giving, you know that you can give a good product, you care the most, but when other people are involved, there's a whole different industry of keeping them happy with, are they getting paid enough, or they're sick today, they can't show up, and
they want to they want to be paid more money.
Yes. Do they even do a good job? Do people like talking to them in their service? So It's like the people thing, but that's the only way to grow, because you either are happy with the plateau that you're at as a solopreneur, or if you're like, I want to do more, help more people and have a bigger impact, you must have other people, and there are really good people. And I would say, as another note, because I was an employee with my parents under their chiropractic office for a long time, the best way I think to keep people that are really good is to pay them above their market value, not by an obnoxious amount, but don't always try to penny pinch on like, oh, well, the person in your industry typically gets paid $100,000 a year, so are you okay with 90? And they're like, okay. Eventually, a good person has other friends that do kind of similar things, and they're like, bro, are you getting 120? I'm getting 90. My boss is such a stickler. You know what? I'm gonna go elsewhere or just start my own thing. But if you really want to keep good talent, I do think it's okay to pay a little more, because you're still it's a lot harder to then have to rehire, to retrain, to find somebody just as good. So I'm a fan of, having to pay a little bit above market for somebody who's good. And I think there's a lot of value in that as well.
Yeah, so interesting you brought up a lot of the good points here. So first off, you were mentioning going from solopreneur, which by the way is just a very high paying job. That's what that is, right? Exactly. Like when you're by yourself, you're a solopreneur, whether it's a real estate agent or anything, when it's just you have a high paying job. Okay, I don't care if you're making $100,000 or $800,000, but you have a high paying job. And until you start having employees, all right, where the business can operate without you there physically, right? That's when you eventually get into the role of a business owner, right? And because a lot of people are stuck in business operator versus business owner, and there's a drastic difference.
Huge.
Right? Where, like, can you go on vacation for a month and your business continues to run? That is the question, right? Like, that's when you can say, like, that's business owner versus business operator, right? And it definitely takes a lot of time to get there. And a lot of people make a lot of money today as a business operator. So I'm not saying you need to become just a business owner, but there is a difference, okay? Also, when you want to start going from a few $100,000 a year to a few $1 million a year, 99% of the time, you're going to need a team. Right? You're going to have a support team. You're going to have sales. You're going to have all these different departments. You're going to have other positions that need to be filled. And it doesn't have to happen right away. I mean, like, the big problem also, what I also find is interesting, is a lot of people try to skip the me working really hard part, and they just try to hire right away to bring in people who can do the working really hard thing, right? Which most of the time does not work out. Most of the time, the people who make good money that I've noticed are people who got into doing the work and working really hard and working 12, 14, 16-hour days for long periods of time, and then brought on people to support them in continuing to grow the business, versus someone who's done nothing, and then they're like, oh, I'm just going to hire somebody to go run the business for me, and maybe that'll work out, right? Then you were also talking about good talent and paying them well. So I'm actually a fan of there's a lot of good people out there who are very, very good workers, right? Like, there's B talent, or A talent, B talent, C talent, D talent. A lot of the A talent is working for your competition right now, okay? So in order to get them to be working for you, you need to have a few things. Number one, a really big vision and really big goals that they can feel like they can accomplish their goals easier with you than with somebody else. And also, you have to have a powerful culture that they want to continue to work with you and for you, right? In your organization, where they can feel like a better home for them is with you versus where they're at. And also compensation, like you mentioned, you have to have a good, very, very strong compensation. Now, it's not all about compensation, but a big part of it is, and a lot of people want to skimp out with paying good talent. Like, as an example, I have a very good friend of mine who runs my consulting company, and he was one of those people where he got laid off during COVID. He worked for Tony Robbins, who's one of their top salespeople, and then got laid off during COVID. And I got to keep this lit. So when he got laid off, I knew he's got great talent. I said, I don't have a business for you to work at yet, but I want to hire you and have you work for me because you're great talent, and I know that we're going to build something very cool. By the way, the first year, I lost over $100,000. And even in the second year, we didn't make a ton of money. And my wife, to the point where my wife was like, why do you even have him still? It's just costing you a bunch of money. And I'm like, this guy is going to be a freaking killer, right? And that, by the way, that business last month had our best month ever, right? In net profit, we did as much as we made in all of 3 years ago, right? Crazy. So crazy. We had a killer month, well over 6-figure month. And people don't realize it takes time to build a really successful business, but he's great talent, and he made a lot of money, by the way, last month. With his bonuses and everything else that he hit. That's the point. And I want him to be super happy and excited to be working with us. I bought him what is it called? World Cup tickets. He's into soccer, so I got him World Cup tickets. You want to take care of your people, right? I want him to know that he's appreciated, and he loves soccer, and he was blown away with that. And even with one of my other partners who crushed it and had a great year, his best year yet, made me a lot of money, I got him season tickets to the Jets, right? And it's I want to take care of my people, right? Because they're helping me make a lot of money. I want to show them I appreciate them, and I want to continue to grow and build, right? So yeah, if you find great people, you fucking take care of them. You do whatever you possibly can to make sure they feel loved and appreciated and cared for, and go out of your way. Sometimes, because it's sometimes not about money. Sometimes it's these little things, you're paying attention to things that they love, and World Cup tickets was $4,000, right? But to him, it meant so much. Season tickets to the Jets was $6,000. It wasn't a crazy amount of money, but it meant more than the dollars, right? So really, really taking care of your people is super important. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think it's true. I mean, I've been in, I've had some phases in other companies where you can feel the energy of the company it's either really exciting because you're growing, you have a vision as he talked about, and you know the next step of the company and everything's super exciting. And then I've been in other phases where it feels like everything's on pause and we're just kind of going through the motions, and you can see it in people's like eyes and how they talk and how they interact on a food break. Like it's just not very inspiring. So
Yeah.
to keep a business that is inspiring, is exciting, to constantly have that culture makes a huge difference. And it gives people purpose and a passion, and that's honestly I think the most important thing for anybody to have, if they're an employee, a business owner, or whatever it is that they do. So it's important to make sure that if you do have other people under you, that purpose for them is fulfilled. And it's not all about money. It could be like, I'm trying to get a couple more hours off to spend time with my kid. Okay, great. And if it keeps them there, then that's the most important thing to them. It doesn't have to be about compensation, but for some people it is. So
Yeah.
I think those are all good points. Honestly.
Yeah, and also like what's interesting is that like I think when you're starting a business, realize that like you are going to be in the darkness, and it's about accomplishing these things when no one else is paying attention and no one else is cheering for you and no one else has your back and no one else. It's like it's just you and the person in the mirror, right? And doing it anyways, even though there will be no celebratory bullshit. Like it's just doing it for, like it's doing all these little tasks that no one will ever notice. And then it's like all of a sudden you're the guy or the gal talking about the story on stage, and everyone was like, oh my God, I can't believe that person accomplished all these amazing things. Tell me about your story. And you start talking about like your first beginning days. Like, well, like, okay, yeah, I was the one answering the phone. And then like as an example, I remember at the very beginning, even in the real estate business, I would always, I was like, okay, so I'm going to connect you with Alex, who's my transaction coordinator, and she'll handle everything via email with you. Alex was me with another email address, and but it looked more professional, right? But it was like one of those things, man, where it's just like, talking about it now, it's funny to talk about it out loud, but it was like these little nuances where like I had to work endless hours so that I can get to the next step, so I could pay the next employee to get, let the business continue to grow. So. I don't care what business you start. I don't care, what your passions are. It does not matter. But the point is, get started and do it for a long period of time. Do it consistently. And when you're making a few $100,000 a year, let's talk about real estate for a second. Like when you start making a few $100,000 a year, I think it's so funny. Like I was just coaching a guy today. Shout out to who you are. But I was coaching this guy today, $300K a year guy, and he's going to grow. And he just brought on a bunch of team members, and he's looking to grow. I'm like, look, dude, like the problem that we went through was that he wasn't hiring support. He was hiring more people to do the work for him. I'm like, dude, like you're the number one guy. It's you plus support staff, not hiring other people to do all the work that got you to 300K. It's like, no. Like you want more time to focus on the things that make the most money. That's why you hire people. Right? So it's like the first hire should always be support staff. It's not more salespeople. It's not more people to do the things that are high dollar per hour activities. It's no. I want to delegate everything that isn't a high dollar per hour activity so that I can do more of that. Because if I start, like, let's say you have 60 hours a week you're working, and you could hire somebody at $5 or $10 or $20 an hour, all of a sudden now you get 20 hours of your week back, where you can push that stuff off, that you can delegate off for much cheaper, which will allow you to increase your income, because now you're applying more of your high dollar hour activities into what you're doing, right? You're the person who should be doing that, not other people, right? And I see this all the time, and it destroys real estate agent productions. And I'm like, so what do you do during this? He's like, oh, well, I'm managing these people. I'm like, you just said you're a manager, but I would hire a manager for $50,000 a year. Why would you do that? And I'm like, you're trying to make $1 million a year. What manager do you know that's making $1 million a year? Because I don't know one, right?
I'm curious, is anybody here also interested in starting a business, a new venture, or has a new idea of something that maybe they haven't started, just started last year, even a couple years in? I'm just curious if anyone is open to sharing with that. I'd love to see what some people.
Yeah, drop in the chat. What kind of business have you started recently? If you are pretty new to the industry, drop it in the chat. Let me know where you're located. How's it going? What challenges are you experiencing? We'll take the next few minutes or so. We'll probably go to 8:15, 8:30 today. We'll see how it goes, depending on the questions. But drop your questions in the chat. Let us know like what challenges you're experiencing in the business. What stage of the business are you in, right? Patrick Bet David actually talks about this, but very interesting. He talked about how there's like different stages in the business, and like the first stage in business is the shadow phase, which is you should go shadow somebody, like we talked about, go shadow somebody in your industry that you want to dominate, right? Go work for somebody who's a killer in the industry. You go learn how the game is played, right? And then once you learn how the game is played, you kind of rinse, wash, repeat, and you do it for yourself. The next phase after that, I believe was, I'm trying to remember all the phases. For real estate, I'm gonna talk about real estate for a second because this is, his are for just business in general, but I'll talk for real estate. Like the first part is shadow, but the real, for me, it's like the first 100 grand is just getting consistent. It's the consistency phase. That's when I teach it. It's like, it's just consistency. Because the big problem of making your first 100 grand, the reason why most people don't is because they're not consistent enough, right? They're not consistent enough in the activities that actually will make you money, right? You're consistent in all the stuff that's like stupid, nonchalant bullshit work, right?
All the busy work.
All the busy work, exactly. And every business has it. Every business has busy work, right? And it's like, how can you be more consistent than the other people in your industry doing the high dollar per hour activities, right? That's what makes you big money. Like that's what's going to help you get to your first 6-figure or multi 6-figure year, by the way, right? So also, what's interesting though, is that like for me, I remember when I got back in the real estate business again, like 8 or so years ago, 9 years ago. And again, I was a 22-year-old kid, okay? Didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have any connections. It's like like no one around me was buying real estate. And the one thing that I knew that I had, and I was good, which I used to my advantage, is that I had a lot of time. I didn't have anything else going on, right? I didn't go to college. I went to community college for like half a semester. I dropped out twice, actually, okay? I friggin' hated college, okay? And what I realized though is like I have all this extra time, and what I can do is that I can make more calls than anybody. And I wasn't the best salesperson. I still don't think I'm the best salesperson, but I had more time than other people. So I was able to put in 10 hours a day up on the phone. So I was having 50, 60, 80, 100 conversations a day with new prospects. And when you do that, it's hard to not make more money.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, imagine if you talk to 100 people a day in any business. Any business.
Yeah.
You're probably going to sell something. It would be hard for you not to. Even if you sucked at sales, you probably would sell something.
It would also be hard to suck if you did, if you talked to 100 people a day and you didn't improve every day.
Exactly.
You're going to just naturally get so much
better. 100%. And everyone's like, oh my God, you're so good. I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, like, I feel like I don't feel like I'm that great, but I just had made thousands of calls. I've had thousands of conversations, and you start realizing that most of the time, the conversations are pretty similar, right? And then you're like, oh, so when I say this, they're probably going to say this or this. And when I can just handle that objection when I say this, right? And like, all of a sudden you just know the game,
it's
right?
Like the Matrix, all of a sudden you see it. You're like, oh. There's a good one.
Henry, I'm joining an EXP Realty team here in New Jersey. Congratulations. The broker is Justin. Do you happen to have any tips or opinions on working for EXP? I'm with EXP, and I think it's a great company. The big thing, though, is that it's a virtual brokerage. I don't know if your team is also virtual. My team is virtual. We have some in person, some mostly virtual. But I think what's important to understand is that like the game doesn't change much. Right? Like it doesn't matter if you're with X brokerage or Y brokerage or Z brokerage. It does not matter what the brokerage is. It doesn't matter even what the team is. Your game is essentially the same. Go find seller leads. Once you find a good opportunity, I don't know if you're in residential or commercial, but you said you're joining at EXP Realty, so I'm guessing residential. The point is set appointments and then go list properties. Like the game is not any different if you're with this guy or this company or next company or whatever. You make calls to sellers, you find people who are interested in selling, you set appointments, and you go list properties for sale. That's the entire game no matter what. And if you do a really, really good job where you're at, you're going to make money, whether you're with this company or the next one. But like everyone thinks that like it's way more complicated than that. No, it's not. Like the late great Bob Ross said, talent is pursued interest. Gotcha, man. Thanks. You got it. No problem. Yeah, I think the other interesting thing, especially with commercial real estate, is that people think that like you're gonna make money like this. Like chiropractic, if I got license, you get a license, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get your license. You could the next day randomly meet John Smith, sell him, make money.
You technically could.
Yeah.
Typically harder than that, but yeah.
I agree, it's typically harder than that. But I'm saying in the commercial real estate business, I can meet somebody today who's interested in buying something at any price. I'm not paid today. I am paid in 90 days or something like that, 4 months down the road.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a very long sale. It's probably one of the longest sales cycles of any industry. And matter of fact, like we were talking about at the very beginning, the more expensive stuff you sell, the longer the sales cycle typically is. But that's also why you make more money. It's a higher level of expertise and higher level individuals you're working with, right? Because you're working with poor people, right? Like just to be direct, or just lower income earning individuals, and you're selling lamps, right, for $20 or $30. There's not a high level of expertise. Do you like the lamp? Yes, no, maybe so. You buy it, whatever, right? There's not a level of expertise you need.
Yeah.
But what's interesting though is that even with furniture, which can be very expensive, right? We have some friends who own very expensive furniture, and you need to have a very high level of expertise when you're selling a chair for $10,000, right? Or outdoor furniture, as an example. My friend, I think, spent $600,000 on outdoor furniture. Okay, that individual needs to have a high level of expertise to have that type of sale. You can't not know the way it's made, who made it.
It can't be your first time.
It can't be your first time.
And you're just gonna stumble into a $600,000 commission sale. No, you got to be like, I built this with my bare hands. I know everything about this furniture, almost, or I've been in the industry for 10 years and I know the owners of this company. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's gonna be a very different game. And like most people get into the commercial real estate industry thinking they're gonna make a sale in 30 days or less, and you're not. You're like, you need to have a bankroll and be prepared to invest a bit, not only time-wise but financially. I'm sure you're experienced in this before. I've experienced this before, especially in the beginning when negative thoughts start creeping in. That's a great thing to talk about now. How do you keep them at bay and stay focused while still believing in yourself? Amazing question. You want to take this one first?
I think a good thing, what I first kind of thought of is, I think this happens to everybody to a certain degree. Even if you are an expert, you've been doing it for 10 years.
I was going to say that too, yeah.
There's just the ups and downs, which is like, it's just the seasons of life and the seasons of business. But the more that you go through them and the more that you come out the other side, successful, that anxiety or uncertainness tends to fade.
Yeah.
But still, it's also in a good way. If you want to turn it to a positive, it keeps you sharp, keeps you hungry, and keeps you like not getting too what's the word? Too complacent and too just on your heels. And then the other thing is having good people around you. So whenever, imagine you had a rough day, this depends on you, but sometimes you need somebody to call, if that's your family, your best friend, people you went to high school or college with. And also make sure you're in a good environment, because if you're calling people from college and they're doing nothing with their life, imagine the advice that they're going to tell you. So when you get yourself in, if it's like a men's group, or if it's you have your buddies or whoever, do not try to be the person who makes the most in that room, or is the most optimistic in the room, or has the most entrepreneurial spirit. Try to be around other people who inspire you, and you're like, damn, great, let's chat, I got questions. So I think a big thing is the people around you as well.
Yeah. But like you said, every single person who runs a business, who ran a business, everyone experiences, by the way, the negative thoughts. Every single one of them. There are going to be periods of super highs and super lows, right? And what's interesting, like you actually had said here in your message, which I like, is that like the how do you power through them, right? Because as an example, COVID for me was a really, really tough time, right? Where like it was a very low point for me, where I went from making $100,000 a month to zero, and I couldn't do anything about it. There was nothing happening, right? Everyone was terrified about.
It actually cut my business in half in COVID too, and I was like, I didn't think this was possible.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, whoa, I did not account for this. And it is one of those things where, by the way, there's a lot of people who fell out of the industry in that period of time. And then what ended up happening is it ended up being my best year ever, right? So it went from, this super low to super high, right? And, what saved me was being in the business, right? It's like time in the business versus how, what you do in the business, right? So what I think is interesting, like you also had mentioned, Sterling, was the more proof you give yourself, right, of like being a person of your word, right, where you're like, when I say something, I do it, the easier it is to power through a lot of this kind of stuff, because it's like, okay, well, I know that like I'm gonna make calls today, and then you do it, and you're like, oh, okay, got it. Like when I say something, I do it, and then like I'm gonna go to the gym today. I say something, I do it, and when you keep compounding these things, like that's how you build confidence, right? Like you build confidence in something not only because you do it, but when you say something, you do it, right? So for anybody who's, you know, like looking to, because it's like really hard to be, it's really hard to be depressed when you're constantly active, right? Like it's really hard to be down when you're like, I'm doing the activities that I know will drive results. Maybe the result hasn't occurred yet, but I know that if I continue to do the thing, like speak to 100 people a day, it's really hard to not be, you know, I wouldn't say be jacked up and excited, but more so like know confidently, okay, something's gonna work out. If I just make my calls, it's really hard to not make money eventually, right? The problem is that people don't make enough calls to actually ever get a real result, right? They do such a small amount of work, they don't realize how much is actually required to make a sizable amount of money.
Yeah, you know,
right?
This kind of brings me back. When I first started my business here in Miami, I moved to Miami, I legitimately knew like 3 people, and they all were not close to the area that I moved to.
It's 3 more than me.
Yeah. And early on, I had a lot of days where I didn't have any clients, but the bills were still coming due and everything like that. And in order to keep my head and my framework in the right space, I would always do something. I would always do, you know, something productive. Even if I didn't have a client to see, I would go to a new gym. I would talk to the owners and I would ask them, hey, are you, you know, if you guys are having an event, I'd be down to do a pop-up and collaborate with you guys. And I can bring my table and I can talk to people. I can adjust people. I can do something. And I would always do something that kept my mind occupied, but was also going in the right path. I didn't just sit and watch a bunch of Netflix or just go hang out with friends at the pool and drink, or that would be way too easy and I would not have succeeded at all. So in the real estate business, I imagine, like you said, the calling, right? But even, I don't know, how about like, you know, like the door knocking or in-person stuff. But for me, in-person is super important. So I would go to gyms, I would go to events, I would go to anywhere where my prospective clients were potentially at, and I would just do something productive. And all of a sudden, like, things just started to happen. Even if it didn't come from that exact event, all of a sudden a person was like, hey, I have a friend who's interested. I'm like, wow, I don't know how that happened, but
Luck compounds, man.
Exactly.
When you do those activities, 100%. And I also want you to think that like it's not about like it's not like we're also saying that it's not like it's never going to happen, right? Like it's about pushing through it and like overcoming it and knowing that like, hey, I also thought this was very interesting. I've been to a couple Tony Robbins events, and he talks about realizing that like negative thoughts are they're not you. You are not your negative thoughts, right? So it's okay to like have a negative thought, but it doesn't necessarily mean like when you're like, oh my God, like this sucks, I'm a failure. It's okay to be like, hey, what I am doing is not working, right? Like you can like that can be a thought, and you're like, you know, if you instead of saying I'm a failure, you could just be like, the activity I'm doing right now isn't working. I need to adjust.
It taught
me
something.
Yeah, it taught me something, right? It's a failure is only quitting. Like that's in my mind, right? Like I can only fail when I quit. So it's like, you know, it's not about not having negative thoughts, but it's about how to deal with them and how to. Tony talked about like snapping back into like equilibrium, where it's like you could have a really low day, like, you know, something fell apart, a deal died as an example, but like how can you snap back as fast as humanly possible to equilibrium and get back to work? And I remember one day I lost like 3 deals in one day, a number of years ago, and it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I was so freaking pissed off. Okay, and I was like, I needed those deals. I was struggling, and I remember I was so frustrated. I packed up all my things, and I started walking to the door of my office, and I'm grabbing the door. I remember this. I walked to the door, and I'm about to walk outside, and before I open the door, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, the successful version of me what would the successful version of me do? Well, he would go back and sit down at the desk and go back and make calls and replace those deals that just fell apart, and I did. And I got back to my desk, I opened up my computer, and I started making calls, and I set like 2 or 3 appointments within an hour. And I was like, this level of like this way of dealing with problems is how I feel like I became successful. I dealt with my problems through driving the actions that actually drive results. Let's continue to ask I got some questions here. Henry, we spoke earlier this month. Okay, cool. Yes, about me looking for deals for you. I was curious if there's someone on your team I could contact when I have a question about a possible deal I found. Just email me info@henryeisenstein.com, and then we'll get connected. info@henryeisenstein.com. I know you're super busy. Can't reply and by the way, I want you to say something. The busiest people respond the fastest. Don't you agree? Right? So, by the way, there was someone today, not on my team. They sent me deals. They made some calls. They sent me deals. and I looked at the deals, and I responded within literally 15 minutes to, I think they sent me 5 deals. I responded to all 5 deals within 15 minutes. So I think you have my contact information. Reach out to me. I'll review the deals. I promise you, if they're good deals, you'll hear from me. And I actually also said, like, I was like, deal 1, response. Deal 2, response. Deal 3, response. 15 minutes. So I'm very fast. I'm very easy to get a hold of. info@henryeisenstein.com. I'll respond to anybody's. If you have deals, let's talk about it. This guy says, I work 7 to 3:30 p.m. I don't get home until 4:30. How do I balance outreach with working and developing my deals I do have? Okay. If you were someone who's trying to get into chiropractic and they had a job and they were working until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, what would you tell them to do?
Work later. No, I don't know if you have kids or a family, so maybe, you have some responsibilities at home. But if it's 4:30, that's like half a day left. I mean, I usually don't stop till 10-ish, depending on the day. But that doesn't always have to mean the same type of work. So there's a lot of different type of work to do. It could be, for example, it could be social media, it could be content, it could be following up with people,
Yeah.
It could be checking in on clients to see how the session was, all different types of things. So how do I balance outreach with?
No, but I actually like what you said, which is interesting because it's like when people come to me, they're like, hey, like, I need a job, right, to make money so that I can do both, right? Like, I respect that. The thing that you have to think about, though, is that sometimes your job isn't conducive to the business you're trying to build, right? So you can get a job that pays you the same exact amount of money, maybe working virtually, maybe working nights instead of during the day, right? And you can kind of maneuver a job that will be more conducive to the business you're trying to build, right? And like, as an example, like you mentioned, I agree with you, actually. Like, I've told many people, go work a night job. Stop working during the day so you can work all day and do your business, right? Work 8 hours in the commercial real estate or the real estate business in general. And then at night, go work a night job and go get paid a paycheck, right?
And it seems like he's an hour drive to get home. So on the drive home, you could also be calling people. You could also be following up on deals. You could be doing
every moment you're not really working, you should be 100% doing the activities you know that make you money.
If you're home and you have a family, your home time is maybe from 6 to 10 or however late you do it. But just have the time where you don't think about work. But before that, everything needs to be grinding and building.
Well, I was actually going to say, like, if you've got a family, dude, like, you got to tell your wife, your spouse, or whoever that is, your partner, and say, listen, the next 3 years, I'm not going to be available like I have been. I want to build my dreams. And it's having the right expectations, because the reason why most couples fight is because there's no expectation, right? All of a sudden you change, and all of a sudden they're like, wow, I don't like this, and I don't know why it's occurring. But when you set up an expectation, like I told my wife, and I said, like, hey, I want to have a private jet. I want to live a crazy life. It's going to take me X amount of years. Either you're with me or you're not, right? You're either with me or against me. And she's like, I'm with you. Like, so she knows that, like, hey, for the next few years, we live a great life right now, but it's not the life that I want. It's not the life that she, knows that we can attain by allowing me to work all the time. So I'm like, you can go do you, but don't get upset with me that I'm doing like X. That doesn't mean, like, we're gonna have less date nights than an average couple. We're gonna have, all these other things that other couples don't have, because I work all the time, so we can, have a nicer life in a lot of other ways. But we don't do a lot of the things that other couples maybe, like, who work 9 to 5 as an example. They can come home and spend 5 hours together and fuck off and be on the couch and whatever. But for us, it's like we don't have a lot of that kind of time, but like when we do have that time, it's very intimate. Like it's like we get to make sure that we're 100% with each other.
Yeah.
So I think you just got to make sure you adjust that way. What's you guys' opinion? What are your opinions on having a mindset of burning the boats? Ever heard that?
I mean, that's what I did when I moved here. I worked with my family, so it's a family business. That's tough to leave. And I worked for them for 7 years, and then it got to a point for many different reasons where I was just like, look, I need to do more. I know I can achieve more, and I'm not gonna be able to do it here. I have a great relationship still with my family, but at that time, I was like, I just have to go out and see if I'm worth what I know I'm worth. I have to prove it to myself and all of that. So I moved down here, and I signed a year apartment lease, and I only had enough of my savings for maybe 5 months. And I was like, so I made it happen, and that quickly incentivized me to not really be going out and partying and all that stuff, because I knew that the bill was due. And so I think it's good. I think it's really good, and
I think everyone's going to have that point.
yeah, I think you just got to do it, and you will be surprised of what you are capable yourself.
Amen.
When you do it, and you don't really know until you have your back against the wall and you don't have a boat to sail back on.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that too many people give themselves way too much ability to be like a cop out. Like it's like they give them so much like capability of saying like, oh well, I've got a paycheck. It's okay. Like when you don't burn the boats, I think it's like you give yourself too much of an out. So actually, I think that's actually really interesting to say like, hey, enough's enough. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do this, and I'm either gonna do it or I'm gonna die trying. Because when you have that kind of mentality of like, this is going to work, period, end of story, I'm going to do everything possible to make it work, I think you are, like he said, going to be surprised with what you're capable of.
Some good questions now, guys.
Yeah, I love it. What type of returns are you looking for on multi-tenant retail assets? By the way, I love shopping centers. You're in assets in Florida. I'm in Orlando and I have Central Florida deals. Yeah, send me deals. info@henryeisenstein.com. I'll look at anything you have. Typically, we like to buy 20,000 to 100,000 square foot centers. Good cap rate day one, strong value add deals, low price per square foot deals. Most important thing to me is a very cheap price per square foot. I want to get deals at a discount where I'll buy a 5 cap if I can, like if market is 150 a foot, but I can buy it at 75 a foot, 80 a foot, and I have the ability to raise rents. I love that. That's like perfect type of deals. And by the way, that's how you'll sell a lot of real estate if you can find good deals. Info@henryeisenstein.com. You can send me over deals. I'll review them. I appreciate your comments. I work on weekends and do 2 night shifts during the week. Amen. And I dedicate the rest of my time to real estate. Good for you.
I think, no, he's the guy that talked about his schedule before, I think. Right?
I don't think so. No, someone else.
No?
Yeah. No, he's saying I appreciate the comments. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Nice.
I love it, man. Like that's exactly what we're talking about.
I love it.
By the way, I love how you adjusted your schedule to make sure like I need to adjust my schedule so I can spend more time on the business, right? And you work the rest of those hours on getting a paycheck. I think it's the right way to do it. I closed my first deal in September last year and I made about $45,000 after fees. I'm still working around 70 hours a week though. My money doesn't last forever and it's easy to spend $40,000 quickly. Yeah, I agree. I think my monthly bills are like $50,000 to $60,000 a month, right? So yeah, you can tell my wife knows how to spend money. Very, very good at it. And I think it's also interesting to realize that like when you're on your come up, you have to live so cheap, which I didn't do. After a certain point, but I wish I did that better. But on your come up, you should live as cheap as humanly possible. Do not get a new house fast. Do not get a new rental fast. Do not get new cars quickly. Do not stop eating out. Like being really smart with your money for the first few years of your business will actually set yourself up to be more financially free, faster, this way, like again, most people, by the way. Most of the people that I know, as an example, I have a guy who works with me. He is one of the most frugal people you'll ever meet in your entire life. He makes great money, several $100,000 a year, and he spends like $5,000 a month, right? $5,000 a month, makes hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, puts a lot of money in the bank. He actually has more cash in the bank than most people I know around our age, and really, really proud of him because he doesn't make millions of dollars a year, but he has a ton of cash in the bank, and that's a very, very smart quality to have in the very beginning of business.
And then I would also just say, for the guy who just said that he closed the first deal, try to put yourself around people who to them they spend $40,000 or not spend. Their expenses are $40,000 a month because it's going to change your whole framework, the way that they think. The way that they analyze opportunities is totally different.
Yeah.
So I would just say continue to try to elevate who you're around and spend time with, consuming content, all of it, and it's going to change how you view things, and that will bring about other opportunities to make more as well.
Absolutely. How do you get over the fear of calling sellers when you're new to the industry and don't know a lot about small detail stuff, or a potential seller might ask you questions? I guess I fear looking stupid. How many times have you called somebody and they asked you a question you didn't know at the very beginning of your career?
A lot.
A lot. Yeah. By the way, you have to be okay with like just saying the magic words of saying, that's a great question, let me get back to you, right? Instead of saying, I don't know, I like saying, that's a great question, let me get back to you. And it's a better way, because if someone says that to me when I ask them a question, it makes me think that you're competent enough to know how to go get the answer, right? Instead of acting incompetent and trying to make it up and lie or be dishonest. And if saying something like, I don't know, I think it also, it may be a little bit of a negative connotation where you can say literally this, instead of saying, I don't know, you could just say, that's a great question, let me get back to you.
And have confidence with it, not, oh, I have no idea, I'm new to this. Don't say that, don't say that.
It's probably the wrong way to handle it.
Right.
So like, but it's okay to not know the answer, because there's still things that people ask me and that I don't know, but I know how to get the answer, right? It's like Tony Robbins talks about, it's not about a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness. And a lot of people are just not resourceful enough to know how to go get the answer. So if you're worried about, by the way, just to be very clear with you, last thing I'll even say this, and just call it bro to bro, like just saying, honest to God, if you're scared of being, scared of looking some type of way, I felt the same way at the very, very beginning. You're a fucking salesperson, right? There are going to be times where you're going to look silly. It's totally okay, and you just need to get over it, right? Like, or don't be in sales, right?
That's how
like,
you learn.
That's how you learn,
And I
exactly.
think we're about done, so last minute questions.
Yeah, last few minute questions here.
Shoot them over.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm married for kids. I'm going to get making it happen. Okay. I know this is where I'm going to make the most money, 100%. Okay. I watch lots of Henry cold calling videos to get over the same exact hurdle. Amen. Yeah. Watch my cold calling videos and realize that people tell me to go fuck myself all the time. It's totally okay. I'm still alive and nothing happened to me, right? Like, you just get to power through. Guys, we hit the 8:30 mark. That wraps it up for today. If you guys enjoyed this content, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Remember, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure you tune in to CRE and Cigars each and every single Monday, 7:30 Eastern time. I'll check in with you guys next Monday. Peace out, everybody. Thank you guys for joining in. Thank you guys. Peace out.